Welcome to the Sports Degos with your hosts Sonny and Murph. We advise you to turn down your speakers and turn up your crap filters because it's gonna get loud and messy. Just win, baby. Just win, baby.
If I don't have to do all the crap I did this past Saturday as far as cut back and jump over somebody and stumble, I don't worry about getting caught, period.
On an unbelievable night. Swung on, there's a high drive. Get way back. And it's 20 to just get a victory for the Oakland Athletics.
And laugh when he's conquered and won.
Got some physical players on our team. That's the way you have to play to win. That's the way we play.
Get fired up. I ain't playing. I'm telling you, get fired up. Stand up. Get out of that chair, moron. It's time for the Degos. That's right, Murph and Sonny from the Dego Dungeon. You got it right here, live.
Welcome once again to the Sports Degos. I am your host, Sonny, in studios in the lovely confines of the Dego Dungeon. And as always, joining me from halfway across our beautiful country, Murph. What's going on, my brother?
Man, so much is going on, Sonny, and I'm glad to be back into the Dego Dungeon. Really excited to welcome in our first guest tonight. We're breaking format a little bit. We got a live interview to do right here at the top of the show. And guys, we got a legendary NBA sports writer coming in to the Dego Dungeon.
Peter Vesey will hopefully be joining us in a matter of mere moments, Murph. That's a tongue twister. Mere moments, Murph. 3 M's back to back. Peter Vesey, legendary NBA sports analyst and broadcaster. A lot of different things. Got a lot of stuff. So he'll be joining us a couple minutes. Murph, been a big week in sports. LeBron, 4th MVP. Rose still ain't playing. The Warriors are going crazy, right? Hockey, Murph. I think there's hockey playoffs, right? I think, Murph.
Yeah, there's
Hockey?
there's a lot of playoffs going on in the NBA and also in the NHL, and we don't talk a lot of hockey on the show, but should we?
I don't know. Do people even? Hockey? I just keep asking myself, hockey. Murph, it's getting hot up here in the Pacific Northwest. I was up here the other day edging and mowing my lawn and stuff, and I broke a sweat, Murph. It's now the season in Oregon to where you walk outside and no longer does the precipitation dictate if you get wet, but there's actually sunshine, Murph. I'm happy as a little kid on Christmas Day. I can't tell you enough.
Well, that's awesome. Well, we got quite the opposite going on in Middle Tennessee. We've actually had a temperature plunge. I think the high today was 59 degrees. And it's been raining like crazy, and I can't tell you in the 15 years I've lived in Middle Tennessee, the last time I remember it being cold in the middle of baseball season at the 5th or 4th of May.
Murph, that's tough. I don't feel sorry for you whatsoever because living up here in the old Oregon up here, we don't get good weather very often. So when we get it, I like to rub it in people's faces. So I'm gonna rub it in your face. Ha ha. Tough luck. And moving forward. All right, Murph. I think this is quite possibly the biggest guest we've ever had on the show. We're going to try to line up Peter Vesey. Murph, who is Peter Vesey? For maybe those people who don't know.
Well, as if you don't remember, really the formative years, at least for me, was listening to Peter Vesey as a locker room sideline reporter, analyst, commentator. back on NBC in the heyday of the the heated rivalries, I should say, in the 90s, and really the early to late 90s. The Heat, the Bulls, the Knicks, all those things. That's Peter Vesey was just a super high profile guy, doing interviews with the absolute stars of the league at that time. That was the first time that I ever really took notice of him. But through the course of our interview, you're going to find out that his legacy in the NBA is long and storied, continues to be. And there's probably a lot about Pete Vesey that you guys will recognize that you don't even realize.
All right, Murph, without any further ado, I'm going to call him up here real quick. And Murph, we're live on the air. Hopefully he answers. Hopefully he does. Oh, a little Biggie. A little Biggie is his ringtone.
What are you doing?
Calling Peter Vesey. That's his ringtone.
That's his ringtone?
That's his ringtone.
Hello?
Hello, Peter.
Yes.
Hello, welcome. You're on the Sports Degos with Sonny and Murph.
Sonny and Murph. Okay.
Sonny and Murph. Hey, first of all, Peter, we just want to thank you for taking the time to join us. We feel very honored to have the special privilege to talk to you, and just thanks for taking a few moments here.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on.
No problem.
Let's do it.
Anybody listening, you can find Peter on Twitter at PeterVesey1 on Twitter. First off, Peter, what drew you to want to be an NBA sports analyst? What was it about basketball that was so appealing for you?
Well, I got tired of doing yard work. I worked on a ship coming out of high school as a scullion. You know what that is?
No, that's before my time, sir.
Is that a merchant marine?
No, it's not before you. Yeah, merchant marine. Yeah.
Okay.
Our Sonny and I are related. This is Murph talking. We're related, and our grandfather was a merchant marine just after World War II.
Okay, so I was on the President Monroe coming out of high school, got a union job, and worked my way around the world, and I was a scullion. And a scullion is somebody who washes dishes and pots. And I did that for about 8 months. So what do you think? I would take any job after. Man, that was tough work.
No kidding. Peter, you have some pretty high credentials on Wikipedia and some other websites that maybe people don't know. For instance, one is that you coined the name Larry Legend in reference to Larry Bird. Is that true?
You think Wikipedia lies?
I just changed it.
Yes, it is. It's probably the nickname I'm most proud of. Other than Joe Barely Cares. But no, that's some things you never forget as a writer, and I remember trying to figure out a nickname for him because he was such a favorite player of mine. And I remember where I was sitting in the news in the sports section of the Post, and which typewriter I was using. I think it was before computers. I don't know. I'm trying to think. I think it was. No, I guess we had computers in the room. But anyway, so I'm trying to come up with something, and it just came to me. I was playing off Billy Idol, and came up with Larry Legend. So the only problem is I didn't make any money on it. If I was Pat Riley, I would have trademarked it, and all those Celtic people, all the Bostonians that are wearing those shirts, Larry Legend, and the hats, I would have made a few bucks.
Well, speaking of that, you also coined the term Air Jordan. And, not only is Air Jordan in reference to the player, but it really virtually helped launch an entire brand in Nike. And, when you mentioned that, not having the ability to monetize Larry Legend, has Nike ever credited you with the fact that that's really what kickstarted that? Possibly the biggest and most successful marketing campaign in the history of sports?
Well, I would love to take credit for that. But the fact of the matter is, I didn't coin the names. I hate to ruin all this for you, But what happened was the shoe had already come out. It was Air Jordan. It was his rookie year, and it was called Air Jordan. And I caught him, early in his rookie year, and was mesmerized. And so I wrote a column about him, and I just called him Air Jordan the whole column. And that's why I guess I got some credit for it, but it's really not true. But his agent whatever his name is, David Falk, he told me that I don't know, the next year, the year after that was responsible for getting that brand out there, to getting the name Air Jordan out there, because I did it. But no, I wish I had come up with it. I did come up with his airness. That was another nickname I came up with, but no. So here we are. We'll do true or false.
Hey, you're listening to the Sports Degos with Peter Vesey at Peter Vesey1. True or false? Yeah. Moving forward here, Peter, what was it like working right when Jordan was kind of taking off? I'm 33, so, when I was starting to get around to basketball, Jordan was kind of reaching that pinnacle peak, but it was pretty young in my sports viewing. What was that like to be just around that and watching this young man take off to new heights that basketball hadn't seen?
So do you want me to be modest or immodest?
You be you.
Which one you want?
You be you.
So I remember. Listen. So when he came up in 83,
right?
What? 83? I don't know. So when he came up, I'd been around covering pro basketball since 1969, and so Julius Erving was the best man at my wedding. So I wasn't in awe of Michael Jordan, and I remember. Michael having a first conversation as a pro. I remember him saying to me, and I'm going to be immodest. So he said, I know who you are. He says, you're Dr. J's guy, because I had a team in the Rucker tournament in the early 70s in which Julius played for, coming out of the University of Massachusetts. The Rucker in those days was, just the best ball, the best weekends of my life. I'll tell my wife that, but the best weekends of my life, going up to Harlem for Saturdays and Sundays, and bringing up a team of mostly pros, all really good college players, and so. I had a reputation going up there from the Rucker, from the ABA, and then Michael came around, and so, he was, when he came up, it wasn't like, he wasn't, his airness yet. It took him 7 years, I believe, to win a championship, and yeah, he was a scorer, but there were an awful lot of scorers. ABA, NBA, David Thompson was a great scorer. Gervin was a great scorer, and then, and they didn't win anything in the end in the pros. And so Michael came around. He wasn't winning anything either, but once he got the right guys around him, and Jerry Krause realized that he shouldn't rely on Michael for his judgment on talent, that he should choose his own, and so anyway, don't get me wrong. I mean, I grew to appreciate him as much as everybody, and he saved my ass one time, which I'll never forget. I was working at NBC at the time, and they told me that I was going to go interview Michael right before. He'd be the last guy that we interviewed before the All-Star game started. And so they said, you go over to the locker room and, we'll come to you. And I didn't have any training at stuff like that, so I could do my stuff when you ask me questions, but now I got to go interview Michael Jordan before an All-Star game. I don't remember which one it was. I don't remember too much about anything. that day. And then, so I'm in the locker room, not even a producer, me, the cameraman, and Michael. And I'm swear to God, I'm shaking. You know, it's like, I can't even hear myself think. And Michael says to me, hey, just relax. He says, I'll get us through this. He says, just ask me a question. I'll give you a long answer. and I swear to God, I don't know one word that he said. You know, I don't remember what he said. And then I asked the second question, and I don't remember what he said then. And we were done. And he said, well, that was easy. You don't really appreciate it. You don't really understand it until you do it. And I know I mock a lot of people who are on TV and the questions they ask and stuff. But the truth of the matter is, I was there. I know how tough it is. I would never want that sideline job. You couldn't pay me enough. And it was difficult. It's very difficult, and to be able to think on camera like that. You need a lot of FaceTime. And at the end of my career at NBC, I was there 12 years, all 12 years that NBC had the NBA, and by the end I was very comfortable. But boy, I'll never forget Michael saving me.
Speaking of that, go ahead, Jim Murph.
I was going to say, you mentioned a little bit about your print work, and that's really where you really got to start in your career with being a writer for the New York Post and have a long history with print media. But then you mentioned the 12 years.
Let me stop you.
Oh,
though.
Sorry.
I was 14 years at the Daily News before I ever went to the.
Oh,
Post.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yeah, 14 years. I mean, I was working at the Daily News when I was 16 years old.
Goodness.
So, full time. Working 3 to 11, but go on. So ask.
Okay, so so you had a long history in print media before you spent that 12 years at NBC, and I'm a little older than Sonny, and really the formative years of my basketball fandom were when I was in my early 20s and watching all those great playoff series, especially in the Eastern Conference that were going on, between the Bulls and the Heat and the Knicks and all those. And you mentioned your interviews with Michael, and really your interviews were always they always really stood out to me. And I think because you were never afraid to challenge the person that you were interviewing and to put the tough question out there. And I think at times you were unfairly criticized for some of the things that you would put out there to some of the players. Was that an intentional move for you as an on-air journalist, or was that just you being you, just your personality coming through in the way that you chose to interview these athletes?
You mean somebody criticized me while I was on TV?
I know. There's a couple websites.
Peter,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
It's interesting.
Yeah. I must have missed that. I don't remember that. But as far as the interviews go, I mean, if you're talking about going to a city and sitting down with somebody, those kind of interviews versus after a tough series and interviewing somebody and asking tough questions. I mean, two different things. I always. I'm glad that you remember those interviews. I put a lot into them. Nobody helped me with them. Nobody prepared me for them. I'd have to come up with all the questions myself. Again, go and do these interviews while I'm writing columns for the Post. 4.5 years going down to work on TNT, but all in 1 week. So it was very, very strenuous, and but I loved doing the interviews, and I get angry when the people who do the interviews don't listen to the questions, not to the answers, because that's what I did best. I listened to their answers and then reacted to it. I felt comfortable enough to do it, and you remember them, you say, and I don't remember them in particular, except people keep sending them to me the last few months, last 6 months maybe. They've sent me interviews that I did with Kobe, with Barkley,
Karl Malone.
Karl Malone.
Well, Karl Malone. Oh, yeah, I knew you'd bring that up. But that Karl Malone, that's why I said it. Though Karl Malone was after a game, after a series interview. Right. That was different. And you know,
well, that's the thing about
Rex Chapman the other day. Rex Chapman. And I got to tell you, when I watched them, I don't remember. I remember them, but I don't remember them, and I kind of laughed at them myself. I mean, we've had some dialogues on there. I mean, me and Kobe getting into it, me and Barkley getting into it, and Chapman thing was. I thought it was great. And so I did one a week, sometimes 2 and 3 a week of those, and the Malone thing. If you want to talk about it, it was just asking him hard questions after that series loss to the Bulls, and I never really had. I was never intimidated by him. I was always pissed off that he was always trying to intimidate people on and off the court. But at other times he was a very good interview, and so I asked him tough questions, but I don't think they were outrageous or anything. People say he's looking gonna hit you. I never. No. I didn't even remember that until somebody sent it to me.
Well, I don't think that. I thought that you asked that one in particular. I thought you asked some very fair questions, and were they tough? And considering that it was in the moment, sure, but it wasn't like it wasn't anything out of line. I didn't think. I thought that you did a pretty good job of trying to. We as the fan, we're wanting to know what's going through these elite athletes' minds. We want to know. We see what their physical attributes are. We see what they're doing on the court. But what are they experiencing? And that's what you were trying to get out of him, and I thought that you were doing exactly what the fan wanted to hear, or what we wanted to find out ourselves.
I swear I can never, because I'm just not that type of interviewer that I would try to embarrass anybody on the air or in person. I never did that unless I was alone with the guy. If I was alone, then anything went. And, we could get in arguments and stuff, and I could say just about anything. But I would never, and there were writers that did that. They'd want to show how big they were by asking the tough questions at a press conference. Well, you never heard me do that, ever. And I never did it on camera. And I truly believe that I got more out of those guys in those interviews than anybody's ever gotten. It just blows my mind that, nobody has said to me, now that I'm retired, why don't you go interview these guys? But they I don't know what their thinking is on that.
Don't you lose credibility? I mean, if you're a writer, your job essentially depends on these sports guys, the banter back and forth. And so what's the glory other than the 2 minutes, there in that big moment where you ask a tough question and put the guy on the spot and piss off the athlete? Is there a long-term benefit to that, or is it just an ego for a journalist to ask that question to really get the guy?
No, it is ego. And look, I'm not saying I didn't do it in my column. Now we're talking about two different things. I certainly would go after people in my column, did that all the time. But again, I learned lessons about, I tell this story about, Allen Iverson. He and I had a really good relationship. I did a 2-part interview with him when he was a rookie that my wife still talks about to this day. She just loved that interview that we did in the locker room in Philly. And so we had a great relationship. He respected my wife, my son. We knew his mom and all that stuff. And so now he's still in Philly, but it's at the end of his career. And I don't know if you remember the incident where he threw his wife supposedly out of the house, and supposedly she was naked in Philly. I mean, this was a big thing. And so I wrote a one-liner on it, which was, it was I don't remember what it was, but it was pretty tough. Funny, but tough. And so now I'm in Memphis, and I know this because Hubie Brown was just named the coach, and they're playing Philly in his first game, and I walk into the visitors' locker room, and there's Iverson, and he hadn't seen me since I wrote that line. And who would have thought he saw it anyway? It was one line. And he came over to me, and he goes, you know, and in front of everybody, you know, Aaron McKee was there, and Snow was there, and Lynch was there. They were all there. And he says to me, I respected your family. You know, I've done nothing. You know, I've never done anything wrong to you. He says, why would you write that line?
Wow.
You wrote one line that could just kill our relationship. One line. I said, Alan, you are absolutely correct. I mean, that was just stupidity. So I learned a lesson there. You know, and I have bit my tongue at the computer when, you know, with people that I like. I said, why am I doing this for one lousy line? I don't care how funny it is. So,
does it get to a point, like you just said, to where you tend to not treat athletes like people, and you kind of forget that, hey, these guys are people. They have feelings. They have wives and kids they go home to. Does it cross that line?
You're right. You're absolutely right. Yeah. And I've really, never thought of it like that. I mean, I said what you just said, but you're absolutely right. We do. Most of us do. We just write our stories and cover the events and cover the guys and write whatever. Whoever gets hurt, well, this is our job. I've said, in the last few years that the toughest columns for me to do have been where, I have an idea about somebody, say there's something really negative about somebody, and I'm going to, or the person's very controversial, whatever, and I'm going to write a column about that guy. So then I start doing the little investigation on it, and now I come up with two sides to the story, like the good and the bad to the guy. And I said, man, this sucks. I mean, I had it easy. I was going to write, the negative column. Now I've got to give both sides, and so those are the toughest columns to do. You got to be fair. Hold on a second. It's a column. It's not supposed to be fair.
Hey, Peter, moving forward, we're primarily on the West Coast over here, and a lot of Warriors fans and stuff like that. What are your thoughts on this Warriors-Spurs matchup? Warriors are kind of young, Spurs kind of a little older, a little more wiser in how they play and stuff. Do you think the Warriors stand any chance against the Spurs? And what are your thoughts on that series?
Well, I mean, I'll answer it this way. I love the way Mark Jackson in the previous series, he made sure he was the focal point when he took on the Nuggets, took on Denver, with all the stuff he said, and took all the pressure off his team, so they could just go out in games 6 and just play basketball. And I mean, I'm saying it's calculated. I'm saying that that's exactly why he did it, and took the $25,000 hit. Now, who isn't going to play for a coach like that? So he's protecting Curry. All the other players see what he's doing. Of course, they're going to do whatever he wants. Of course, they're going to pay attention in the huddle. Of course, they're going to pay attention in church. Man, that guy starts talking. I don't care where you are in the room. You better have your head up. So now in this series, he did it immediately at the press conference afterward. After winning it, eliminating the Nuggets, he says, we're absolutely the decided underdog. Popovich Hall of Fame coach, Duncan Hall of Fame. They got 3 Hall of Fame players, and on and on and on, So no expectations, no pressure. He's very smart. And so in answering your question, I think they definitely have a chance to beat the Spurs because, Lee might not be able to give anything worthwhile or substantial. But everybody else looks healthy. Bogut's playing the best ball since since he's been a Warrior. The rookies have gained, incredible experience in this round, and Curry and Thompson are, just two of probably the best shooting backcourt in the history of the end of basketball. And I say shooters, not scorers.
Yeah.
So playing against a team that, like you said, they're very wise and Duncan, Parker, Ginobili, they're phenomenal players, but they're not the athletic team that the Warriors are. And so, the Warriors could be more athletic and will be in years to come, but they've got so San Antonio's got Green, they got Leonard and Parker, but in Ginobili's, he's hurting still. So yeah, I think they definitely have a chance to pull an upset. The longer the series goes, the better the Warriors' chances are. You don't want to play Game 7 in San Antonio, but look, everyone's saying 4 or 5 games. I'll be real surprised if it doesn't go 6.
Well, sure would be nice to see it go 6. And, you mentioned the fact that Mark Jackson has really got these guys set up to where the level of expectation is lower. There's not the pressure that's going to be on them. But that said, in the way that they finished off in this last series, their inability to kind of close out the Nuggets in the waning minutes of that game, does that lend to is that just the youth of this basketball team? Or, I'm reminded a little bit of the last time the Warriors had a big playoff run when they took out the Dallas Mavericks, as an 8 seed, and then they kind of fell flat going up against the Jazz. It felt like they spent everything in that first series. Are we seeing that with this Warrior team too? Or did they kind of spend everything with the Nuggets and really started to fall off even in the closeout game, now taking on, as we've talked about, an experience-wise, very good defensive Spurs team? Are the Warriors? Or do you expect to see them kind of continue to rise above and to continue to challenge, or are they kind of met their match here when they see the Spurs?
Your questions are longer than my answers. My answers are damn long.
He's crazy. His questions are long. Get to the point, Murph. Get to the point,
crap
Murph.
about that all the time.
What was your question again?
Here, let me rephrase it.
No, I get it. So this is a different team. You can't compare one team to the other. One has nothing to do with the other, right? I mean, the Warriors that beat the Mavs. Let's remember who was coaching the Mavs.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So it's entirely different. And yeah, at the end of the game, they had so many unforced errors. It was like watching a high school team try to finish a team off. But that's what it's all about. So they just have to slow it down. They have to, most accidents happen, going fast. So they have to slow it down and slow their thinking down. Well, no, they have to think faster, but slow down their reaction time a little. And if they don't commit unforced errors, and I mean almost to a minimum, you can commit errors, but unforced, they're just unacceptable. Mm-hmm. Then the Spurs can't score the way they want. They can't come back and spread the floor quickly and beat you that way. So I think we're going to see that happen. I think that you see Curry, he's very reckless with the ball. Klay Thompson's very reckless with the ball. Klay shouldn't dribble the ball more than twice in any possession, in a row. He should not. I mean, he's a great shooter, and he does a lot of things that are great. But boy, somebody should stop him from dribbling. And that's what they do. That's one of their worst things that they do, is they dribble too much. And Curry, the stuff he does with the ball, I mean, man, if he did that at the Rucker, he could have played for my team anytime. I'll tell you, he's something to watch. But the errors, you got to put up with the errors too, and the bad shot selection. But they're a pleasure to watch. Sent Mark Jackson a note the other day after they won saying, "Man, I'm really jealous. I wish I was out there firsthand watching this." and experiencing it because, now that I'm retired, I'm allowed to root.
There you go. There you go. Peter, man, one more question. You've been around NBA.
Hey, keep it short. Keep it short.
Don't worry. You've been around the NBA a long time. You've seen a lot of great players. If you were a coach, you could draft any player from any generation to be on your team, who would it be?
Kareem.
Be Kareem?
Yeah.
Over Bill Russell?
Yeah, I would take Kareem. Bill Russell had pretty good players around him. Kareem had pretty good players around him, but I'd want Kareem like right out of high school. The heck with that college stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, come on. You asking me one guy. I mean, it's really, really hard. Russell was the greatest role player that ever played the game because he did whatever it took to win, but he wasn't the focus of the offense. But he could score 20. But his whole thing was defense and blocking shots and just being very disruptive. The black cloud, that's what Jack McMahon said about Bill Russell. He's a black cloud that's hanging over the rim. And, yeah. Do you know who Jack McMahon was?
I can't say that I do know.
He was, I'm trying to think if he was affiliated with the Warriors at any time. And he was a great player from St. John's who coached in the NBA, San Diego. And he was in St. Louis. And he played at St. Louis with Hagan and Pettit and those guys. But he and Chuck Daly were the assistant coaches for Billy Cunningham when he got the job, with no assistants, no coaching at any level. And it always cracked me up when Mark Jackson was trying to get a job in the NBA. And all these bright lights, these idiot savants that would say, he's had no experience at any level, and he should have to be an assistant for a number of years before he'd be. Oh, really? And then I'd list, the 20 players before who never had an ounce of coaching experience and became head coaches and were player coaches, like Lenny Wilkins and Dave DeBusschere and Bill Russell and Dave Cowens. I was like, are you kidding me? How stupid. I mean, these people, do they see how stupid they are now? The two of the best coaches in the NBA, Mark Jackson and Rivers, had no coaching experience at any level when they became and they were point guards, which meant they were, coaches on the floor during their 14 to 18-year careers. I swear, every team except Atlanta that interviewed Mark Jackson for the head coaching job fired their coach, quickly. And here he is getting his chance. And Atlanta's Larry Drew. He's the only one that still has a job, and he might not have it after next week or tomorrow. But all those, Steve Kerr, who bores me to death on the air, interviewed him in Phoenix. He was the general manager without any experience, and he didn't think that Mark could be a head coach because he didn't have any experience. Now he wants to be a head coach without any experience. The hypocrisy just keeps going deeper and deeper.
Kind of depends on where you're sitting, what you think, what you believe. Huh? Peter,
we'll I try to point out that hypocrisy every once in a while.
There you go. Peter, I feel like I could ask you 1,000 more questions, but I don't want to keep you on too long. Really appreciate you coming on the show and enlightening us with just the stories and the knowledge and stuff about basketball. Real quick, before we let you go, could you give us a radio ID before we let you go?
No.
Okay.
I don't.
Thanks for coming on, Peter.
Yeah, I'll do it. Go ahead.
We're called the Sports Degos, so shout
Sports
out.
Degos.
Degos?
Is that right?
Yeah. Degos.
How do you pronounce it?
Degos.
Say it again.
Degos. Like
Like
Legos?
I don't want to get the Italians angry at me, man.
Oh, well, you got two of them on the air with you. Well, we're willing to accept it.
Yeah. That's why we call ourselves Degos.
All right, so what do you want me to say?
So just say, this is Peter Vesey. Say whatever you want about on Twitter or wherever people can find you at on the internet or what you're doing. And then you're listening to the Sports Degos.
I'm not going to do that. I'll say I'm Peter Vesey and what?
You're listening to the Sports Degos. It'd be great.
We have a tagline that's we make you a podcast you can't refuse.
Okay. All right.
You can go ahead and do it
Whenever you're ready.
All right. I'm Peter Vesey, and you're listening to Sports Degos, and it's a podcast that I was unable to refuse, and will come on anytime you want me.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Peter. We're going to go to commercial break.
All right, fellas. All right, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, Peter.
Yep. See you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, this is Sports Degos, sportsdegos.com.
Wow, that was amazing. We'll be right back after this word from our sponsor. Oh, wait a minute. We don't have any sponsors. Hey, hang on. We'll be right back.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
How many times has this happened to you? You have a bass and you're trying to find an exciting new way to prepare it for the dinner table. You can scale the bass, remove the bass, tail, head, and bones, and serve the fish as you would any other fish dinner. But why bother now that you can use Ronco's amazing new kitchen tool, the Super Bass-O-Matic 13. Yes, fish eaters, the days of troublesome scaling, cutting, gutting are over because Super Bass-O-Matic 13 is the tool that lets you use the bass with no fish, no waste, and without scaling, cutting, or gutting. Here's how it works. Catch a bass, remove the hook, and drop the bass. That's right, the whole bass into the Super Bass-O-Matic 13. Now, just adjust the control dial so that the bass is blended just the way you like it. Yes, it's that simple.
Wow, that's terrific bass.
We've got bass here. Fast, easy, ready to port. Super Bass-O-Matic 13 comes with 10 interchangeable rotors, a 9-month guarantee, and a booklet. 1,001 ways to harness your bass. Super Bass-O-Matic 13 works great on sunfish, perch, sole, and other small aquatic creatures. That's Super Bass-O-Matic 13. It's clean, simple, and after 5 or 10 fish, it gets to be quite a rush. Super Bass-O-Matic 13. You're never going to have to scale, cut, or gut again. Just send $49.95 to the Sports Degos, care of the Dego Dungeon, Oakland, California.
Welcome back to the Sports Degos with Sonny and the Murph. All right, welcome back to the Sports Degos, thesportsdegos.com, on Twitter at the Sports Degos. Murph.
Sonny.
Is it too soon to say our good friend Peter Vesey was on the show, or do we still have to refer to him as Peter Vesey was on the show?
No, I'd like to refer to him as our bestie. That was an incredible interview. We are incredibly thankful for Mr. Vesey's time. We could certainly consider him a friend of the show, no doubt. And I got to say this. Peter Vesey busted my balls. I'm crossing that one off the bucket list, dude. He busted my chops.
I told you you talk too much. I've been telling you that for years.
And you've been confirmed by one knowing Peter Vesey. That is epic, dude. That is fantastic. So thankful that he took the time to come on with it.
You embarrassed us with Peter Vesey.
I didn't embarrass. No, I didn't embarrass. I was trying to show him that we actually knew a little bit about what we were talking about, and we weren't wasting his time. I was trying to establish a little credibility to our question.
Peter
Vesey, I got a little wordy.
Peter Vesey confirmed one thing. I don't know anything that I'm talking about because this guy was dropping names and dropping knowledge bombs over and over again.
Absolutely, and hey, I don't think using the term legendary career is light at all. Certainly a legend when it comes to NBA journalism. And how cool is it just hearing that voice, man? Hearing that voice on the other end of the line. It's just such a recognizable voice that, again, to go back to, like what we talked about in the interview and prior, that those 12 years he spent on NBC doing that reporting, doing those in-studio interviews, doing those locker room interviews. I mean, he was one of the voices, just like up there with Costas. I mean, he was a voice of the network, a voice of the NBA, and to have him on the air with us here at the Sports Degos, what an honor.
No, I'm blown away. You know, we started talking to him the other day on Twitter. I believe he followed us first, and so I always follow guys back if they follow us. And then I was like, wait a second, Peter Vesey. I was like, is that freaking Peter Vesey? Followed him back on Twitter, checked it out. Sure enough, it was freaking him. And I said, hey, you want to come on the show? And he just replies back, one word, when. I was like, you kidding? So that, man, very cool. Very cool. We'll have that in the archive. We'll also break that interview up so that way you can just listen to it straight off the bat in the archive to the Sports Degos. Again, if you missed it, we just did an interview with the legendary Peter Vesey. He's on Twitter at Peter Vesey1, and just a wealth of knowledge about basketball throughout, 40, 50 years, maybe Murph. He's been covering a long time and stuff,
Yeah, I believe he said, at 68, I want to say, 69, something like that, that he said that he started covering it. I mean, he said he started covering basketball for the New York Daily News when he was 16 years old. So, I mean, yeah, you talk about a storied career in journalism, man. Just absolute wealth of knowledge and so cool. Yeah. So thank you.
Much appreciated. Peter Vesey coming on. We are very, very grateful for that. Murph, are we doing beer this week?
Well, yeah. I mean, I got something prepared, and we can go ahead and start that off. Yeah, we'll do our little beer war. It's what we do.
What are you drinking, Murph?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Sonny, we've talked in the past about fruiting beer, have we not?
You're the big fruiter.
No. I wouldn't say I'm the big fruiter. I would say we've discussed fruiting beer in the past. And where do you come out on fruiting beer, Sonny?
There's only one beer I'll fruit, and it's a Corona. And I do it maybe every sixth time I drink a Corona. I mean, let me rephrase this. Every sixth time I buy Coronas to drink. So not every 6 beers. Every time, every sixth time I'll buy a 6-pack or a 12-pack or whatever.
All right. Well, I'm with you. I don't tend to fruit my beer. I will occasionally fruit a Corona. I will occasionally fruit a Pacifico with a lemon, not a lime.
There you
go.
But
other than that, I'm not into fruiting beer. And one of the more popular fruited beers nowadays is Blue Moon. Blue Moon is a Belgian wheat ale, and people like to stick an orange slice on the top of it. And I don't know how good it is because I've never done it. Because to me, orange, come on, that's a whole nother level of citrus, right? And lime, yeah. Lemon, orange, no. So all that said, I do like Blue Moon, but I'm not a fan of the fruited Blue Moon. So in shopping for tonight's show, I saw some Blue Moon in the cabinet there, and Blue Moon has a seasonal collection of beers. One of those beers is the Blue Moon Valencia Grove Amber. And like I've said many times before on the show, I'm a fan of dark beers. I'm a fan of the amber beers especially are fantastic, and those are my favorite beers. Well, there's a couple of things that happened. I got it home. I got the frosty pint glass. I poured it in. It wasn't quite as dark as I was expecting, and so I took a sip. I don't know if I care for it necessarily, and so I grabbed the bottle because I wanted to read up on it, knowing that I was going to have to describe it on the show. And I just realized that I'm colorblind, Sonny, and I just realized that there's a picture on the label of the Valencia Grove Amber. There's a crate of oranges on the picture. Well, I didn't know that was a crate of oranges until after I read the description on the back of the bottle. And the back of the bottle goes like this. Our Valencia Grove Amber is crafted with roasted malts. All right, so we're not doing so bad so far. But here we go where it goes downhill. Valencia orange peel and a touch of wheat for an uplifting orange caramel aroma. It's the perfect inspiration for taking advantage of the season. You know what it's the perfect inspiration for? Not drinking. It stinks, man. I got this orange peeled flavored amber beer. It's like, Man, I'm defeating myself this week. So
I think you just lost.
It doesn't matter what you have, as long as you don't have like a Budweiser with a grape on top. I think that you win this week.
Murph, I defeat you simply by not even drinking a beer. Period. I'm drinking water, and I think that me drinking water alone automatically qualifies me to beat you. I'm doing a lot of work, a lot of yard work, a lot of stuff going on. I did some stuff today, didn't have a lot of time, came home, fell asleep before the show, drank my last beer last night. I came in the show dry, I'm drinking water. But yet, Murph, I still think I'm going to beat you in the beer war with my water.
You know what? And good for you. You should beat me because this orange thing just ain't working. And shame on you for being so dadgum modest. You graduated for the second time on your way to your master's degree. Congratulations to you, sir. Appreciate your humility, but nothing wrong with taking a little credit for that.
Yeah. It was all right. Oh, Murph, I did, though, have a beer prior to graduation. We went to the graduation.
What'd you have?
Just the Bud Light on tap.
Hey, you know what? That beats this shit I'm drinking.
That beats
this stuff I'm drinking.
Murph, this is the no cussing show. Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
I'm
killing me.
had to bleep me there.
First, you get Peter Vesey to yell at you. Then you drop an S-bomb. Then you drink a Blue Moon who's already orange, and you orange it. Come on, Murph.
That's the first. Is that the first time? Is that the first time we've had first on air? My bad. I'm sorry.
16 shows down the road, Murph drops an S-bomb.
All right, my bad.
It's all good, Murph. It's all good. It's all good. Anyway, Murph.
Hey, May the 4th be with you. In my beer picture, I did put up a pic. I did include Django Fett in the coverage there.
That was cool. I seen that. That was cool. May the 4th be with you.
May the 4th be with you, man. 30th year anniversary of Return of the Jedi, and episode number 7 is on the horizon for 2015. Oh, wait, sorry. I had a nerd moment. All right, back to the show.
I don't want to make this the Force cast, but I was disappointed with the other 3 movies they made after the original 3 movies.
Yeah, but now this is J.J. Abrams coming in, dude.
I don't care. Bubba, that stupid freaking, what's the guy's name? Oh, gosh, it's trying to drive me crazy.
Dude, they're going to have an age of
Jar Jar Binks, Murph.
No, that ain't going to happen.
That ruined it for me.
This is going to be Han Solo, Luke Skywalker heading up the Jedi Order, dude, the reinvented Jedi Order. Leia will be in it. Maybe even some Lando, dude.
Princess Leia coming back. You got old Princess Leia coming back. Nah. No.
Yeah, but they're all. But people, you know what I mean? It'll be age appropriate. They're not gonna, you're not gonna see them out there slinging, lightsabers and stuff.
No, it's just.
I don't know, man. It's gonna be good. I'm all in either way. I'm all in until it's bad.
You know what's good, Murph?
What's that? Oh, sweet.
This is always good.
Put that on pancake.
Murph, what's been going on with the Raiders this week? What have they been doing? I heard a little thing about Metallica and the Raiders. Really? What's that about, Murph?
Well, let's jump right into it. Metallica, or at least the lead guitarist and then lead singer, Kurt Hammett and James Hetfield, came out to AT&T Park before the Giants game. I believe it was yesterday, day before, whenever it was. Excuse me, no, it was Friday night when they played the Dodgers, and they played the national anthem on their 2 guitars before the game. It was a pretty cool moment. Metallica is, a couple of the guys were originally from Southern California, but they quickly relocated to Northern California, and most importantly, the San Francisco Bay Area, and called that home. This is going way back before they were Metallica. And so there's a long storied history of this band in the Bay Area, and they don't make any they don't make any apologies for being from San Francisco and being fans of Bay Area sports. So that said, they played the national anthem before the game, and it was a pretty cool moment. There was another video that I posted up earlier in the week where they had Barry Zito sit in with them in a rehearsal session. They played Fade to Black. It was pretty cool. But seeing all that stuff and surrounding the San Francisco Giants, and I like the Giants. I mean, they're not the A's, but but I do like the Giants, and AT&T Park is beautiful. It's a great place to watch a baseball game, and they're a team you could certainly get behind and root for. But all that said, we're obviously, there's no mistake in that what sporting franchise we root for most, and that's the Oakland Raiders. And so it quickly reminded me back to the 2003 AFC Championship game when Metallica showed up in a trailer in the parking lot of the Oakland Coliseum and performed a little mini concert there before that game. And to me, that's one of those moments that really just defines the Raiders, the Raider mentality, and most importantly, for our sake, the Raider Nation. When you have the biggest metal band on the planet just show up before a playoff game and have a concert, that was pretty awesome moment. So, there's already been a history with this band and with this team. And so anyways, immediately after they played the national anthem, they were doing some band interviews, and Robert Trujillo, the bass player for Metallica, said, I hope this kind of kicks off not only the idea of other bands getting involved with their with their local sports teams, but hopefully for us. And being a big Raider fan, I'd like to see Metallica get involved back with the Raiders again. So, as cool as that moment was back in 2003, like a lot of things about the Raiders, 10 years ago was an awful long time, and those were the, quote, good old days. So maybe the resurgence of Metallica with the Raiders, maybe we could see a little, maybe that'll rekindle something in the team and certainly in the fan base. And, it's certainly a fan base that needs it. While in the meantime, while they're tarping off the upper deck, Metallica is selling out 100,000-seat arenas. So just a pretty cool thing, pretty cool moment for the band and certainly for our football team.
Murph, to me, it's a sad day when this makes news.
It's certainly a slow day when it makes news in Raider world.
No, it's sad. It's sad to me. Because, Murph, I go to a lot of sporting events. Most of the time it's up here in the Pacific Northwest. I'll go to the A's when they play the Mariners up there in Seattle. I'll go to a lot of Oregon State Beavers games, football games, a couple basketball games, watch a lot of events on TV. You go to our annual Raider game every year. I guess that's what annual refers to. At every event, I always ask myself, and mainly in football, how come they have these little pop princess songs playing? Or how come the Super Bowl always has these little pop performances of Beyonce or Justin Timberlake or whatever? This is football, correct? This is, man's game. Should be anyway. Even though you can't, put your head down anymore if you're a running back. But this is football, right? Why do you have these pop bands playing these events? Why do you have these halftime shows of these little teeny boppers and tweens on the field? Shouldn't Metallica already be involved in football? Shouldn't freaking Megadeth and Anthrax and these type of bands be playing the halftime shows? Sure, it's a lot to do with, popularity and how many people are actually going to enjoy it and all that stuff. But to me, Metallica should already be playing football games. It should just be a staple of what football is. It's like you have the first half and it's awesome and hitting and stuff. And okay, guys, we're going to turn to Nickelodeon for halftime. Oh yeah, great. Oh yeah, how about fun? Okay, guys, coming back to the second half. It's like it just doesn't make any sense to me. It's never made sense to me and stuff. So awesome. I hope it happens. I really do hope it happens because it's been broken for a while. I don't know. Am I alone there or what? Am I crazy?
No, you're absolutely dead on. And, in reference to the halftime shows, I think that could be a whole nother topic of discussion. The NFL has attempted at times to make some rock and roll moves, but they always make the wrong rock and roll move. Don't bring in Tom Petty. That's not the rock and roll move you want to make. No. It's I want to say that the Prince has probably been my favorite recent halftime show over the past, I don't know, however many, 20 years probably. I thought he'd had an electrifying performance, but I'm with you on the pop level of it. Yeah, that's what's popular nowadays, and unfortunately, our kind of music, our heavy rock and roll is not. But yeah, I mean, you know, when you hear pregame music, it's not Beyonce. God bless her, she's an incredibly talented woman, and
she doesn't even sing live, Murph. Come on.
But that's not. No, it's AC/DC is what you hear pregame. Guns N' Roses is what you hear pregame. Metallica is what you hear pregame. Pantera is what you hear pregame. That's the kind of stuff that you hear pregame. You don't hear this type of pop music. So I think that to get acts to perform at sporting events certainly should be much more in line with the things that you're hearing throughout the course of the game. Give me some Rage Against the Machine. Give me a little more of that and a little less, like you said, Justin Timberlake.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, so Metallica to play a Raider game, that'd be awesome. Especially if it was the game that we chose to go to, which is either going to be Chargers or Steelers at this point. Yeah. Okay, other Raider news, Murph. They signed 14 undrafted free agents. I'm reading an article that I found on Raiders.com. It was posted on April 29th. And I know it's the 4th already, so if we sign anybody else, this will be a couple days old. Murph, looking over the list. Linebacker, defensive back, punter, center, safety, tight end, guard, wide receiver, quarterback, LS, long snapper. Jeez, why would the Raiders ever need to sign a backup long snapper? Defensive tackle, wide receiver, tackle, running back. Of those names, there's one defensive tackle. Are we going to hear again the upcry that the Raiders are not doing enough to fix the defensive tackle? Murph, who's going to pressure the quarterback?
Well, apparently the only person that's going to pressure the quarterback is the fans, because according to them, there's no one else to do it that wears silver and black. You know, I'm not sure that we talked about it last week. I'm going to continue on to the point. We signed Sims. We signed Walker in the offseason. If this team switches to a 3-4, considering the fact that they got 800 linebackers, or seriously, they have 9 on the roster right now, that's what it's going to be. The pass rush is going to get generated from the linebacker position, not the defensive tackle position. And I think that the quicker Raider Nation gets a grasp of that, the fact that, you know, look, they're not looking for big fat guys to play in the middle, because we're not going to necessarily need them with a defensive change. That's most likely the way it's going to go.
Now, wait a second. I don't think we can hold our hats by saying it's going to happen. They're going to move to 3-4.
No. I don't. Well, okay, let me ask you this.
It may look that way.
Well, there you go. Let me ask you this. What other indicators would you have? What tells you that they're not?
That I haven't heard it yet.
There you go. So that's the only thing out there. And how much of this regime have we noticed things happen already to where they're not going to tell you what's going on? The Raiders have a long history of keeping everything close to the vest and keeping all things, any type of change or anything personnel-wise, all that stuff has always been in-house. That hasn't changed. Everything is going to continue to stay in-house, and that we aren't going to know what the Raiders are going to do until the Raiders do it. But so all you could do is look at the evidence that leads up prior. And as of right now, all the evidence is pointing towards this team making a shift to a 3-4 defense. And heck, it looks to me right now like they're looking like a 1-9-1 defense, for crying out loud, with all the freaking linebackers.
If you're playing Madden, maybe a 1-5-5.
Yeah, the 1-5-5.
1-5-5. That'd be great. Cheap defense, or what do they call it? First and goal defense, right?
The first and goal. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, nothing wrong with that. First and goal. Yeah, so, you know, I've heard you say before, you know, we're going to 3-4. Do we go to 3-4? I don't know. Looks like we could be. A lot of linebackers in the system there. And if it's one thing McKenzie knows, is it's going to be the linebackers, since he played that position back in the day. Looking at the list, though, nothing really jumps out at me other than maybe they're bringing in another quarterback. Does that spell the end for Pryor, you think? Or is this just another guy to compete?
No, I think it's certainly just another guy to compete. And you know, I started this a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not going to get off of it until the Raiders show otherwise. I don't think Terrell Pryor is opposed to playing another position besides quarterback. And when you look at the guys in the league that have come in that have had the non-traditional quarterback skill sets, And when they've been asked to play alternate positions and refused, they end up out of the league. Whether it's going to be Tim Tebow now, whether it's a guy like Pat White who struggled to get on, or look at a guy like Eric Crouch, rewind the clock, former Nebraska quarterback, wanted to be a quarterback, stayed on it, and eventually found his way out of the league. I don't think Terrell Pryor is that guy. I think Terrell Pryor is a guy that's willing to explore the idea of playing alternate positions, because I think he's wanting to just get on the field, which is really a mindset that I'm surprised more guys, period, don't have. Well, I respect the fact that, look, Tim Tebow, I understand you want to be a quarterback. I understand that people have been telling you can't do things for your whole life, and that you've constantly proved them wrong by winning national championships, by winning playoff games, and having success ultimately in the NFL, and that you want to hold to what you feel your best abilities are. But at a certain point, I think that when you get to the highest level of competition, the elite level of competition, what the NFL is in this respective sport, you have to be willing to take an inner look at yourself and say, you know what, maybe I'm not cut out for this position. I think Terrell Pryor has shown already evidence that he is willing to play, and he said it. He's quoted in saying, "I'll play wherever this team wants me to." I'm saying it now. I'm going to say it again until the Raiders show me otherwise. Terrell Pryor will play another position in the Raider offense. I don't know if it's going to come out of some sneaky motion out of the backfield, or if he's just going to line up there straight away. But he's got the body type and the skill set to be a dang good tight end in this league. And you know what? Magically, I think that the Raiders didn't sign any high-profile free agent tight ends. They drafted a couple of guys that were way down the list, guys that were developmental players that could use a year or two playing behind someone like potentially a guy like Terrell Pryor. I'm telling you, I think Reese and Pryor are going to move into more flanker-type roles. They're going to move into a more pass-catching type roles in this offense. I could be crazy, but until the Raiders show me otherwise, that's the way that the personnel is moving.
Murph?
Whew, I almost took a breath.
You're crazy. Pryor's done. I think Pryor's done as a Raider. I think Pryor has yet to show he can be a starting quarterback. I think he's had the time in practice. He's had the time with the coaches. He's had the time in the quarterback rooms that we don't ever see. He's had the time to try and grasp the playbook, but he hasn't been able to. He's basically I forget, was it Chris Hansen who said earlier? He's Tebow, except I think Tebow throws a better football than Pryor does. Pryor, his ball, it hangs in the air too long in the NFL. That'll get you killed. I don't think Pryor's going to see the field anymore. I think, in fact, he's done. He may get cut as a Raider, or he may get traded. I don't see him doing like what Cordell Stewart tried to do. And has that ever been successful for a long period of time, a quarterback doing another position?
Yes, Ronald Curry. Look at Ronald Curry was a quarterback in North Carolina. The Raiders drafted him. They brought him in. They made him a wide receiver, and he was one of the most, I'm not going to call him prolific, but he was one of the more productive wide receivers that the Raiders had at the time. I think back to that catch at Mile High in the snow, jumping up in the back of the end zone and snagging that ball out of the middle of nowhere with one hand. Yes, absolutely. Hines Ward was a quarterback in college, played at the University of Georgia. There's plenty of evidence of guys coming in as quarterbacks but playing different positions in the NFL. And I think that if Terrell Pryor doesn't do it, then shame on him, and he's going to find his way out. I'm with you. But he has the athletic ability to play another position. And if he embraces that, which at this point he said he's been willing to do, heck yeah, man. He's going to play another position, and he's going to be a Raider.
Well, I would argue that there's plenty.
Antoine Randall, there's another one.
Plenty
of
evidence. I would argue that there's plenty. I would say there's multiple. I don't know about plenty. I don't know about plenty.
All right. Multiple. There's been situational times where it's been proven. I have faith in it, man. I got faith in it.
I don't want to beat the Pryor's name. I'm tired of that guy's name being in my mouth.
I'm just looking forward to playing with him in Madden when he's a 90-speed tight end.
Yeah, he ain't that good. I traded him to the Browns. Looking at the guys the Raiders picked up, there's a couple guys on there that, that's some pretty good stats and stuff, But one guy in particular, Murph, is Connor Vernon. And the article, I posted it on Twitter. I don't know if you're looking at it right now. Connor Vernon, 6 foot, 192 receiver at Duke. So he's not very tall. 6 foot, kind of standard, I guess. Played 4 years at Duke, 198 receptions for 2,600 yards and 13 touchdowns. Not that, is that impressive? 50 catches a season as a freshman, maybe even whatever. But here's the cool thing. 2-time All-ACC selection. But the thing that I like, the only player in conference history to register multiple seasons with 70 or more receptions. Now, he played for Duke, so they're not really a powerhouse in football and stuff like that. But when you're the only player in your conference history to do something, that alone right there is a big achievement. Secondly, to get 70-plus receptions in multiple seasons shows that it wasn't a fluke. It was like, the number one receiver went out, so they had to throw you the ball more. Nah, he did it twice. That means he gets open. He has a knack for getting open, and he can catch the ball. I think Connor Vernon could be maybe a diamond in the rough. I don't know. Am I stretching?
No, I don't think so at all. And, we talked a little bit about, conference play and coming out of big schools versus small schools last week when we dove into the draft as a whole. And I think that you bring up a very, very good point, is that can the guy catch? And the answer to that question is yes. When you total that many receptions, it doesn't matter if you're playing against an inferior secondary or not. The fact is, when the ball comes to you, can you secure it, bring it into your body, and call it a reception? The Raiders haven't had that luxury in a long time, other than Ronald Curry, who I just talked about. The Raiders have a history of guys that have bricks clanking into their chest, off of their metal gauntlet-ridden hands. I mean, this has been a team that has been just absolutely the drops have been brutal. And I know that guys like Demo and guys like Jacoby Ford and that they're working on it and they're working on getting better. But when you look at the fact that our tight ends have led our teams in receiving, from Zach Miller to Brandon Myers,
bad sign.
That's bad. I mean, our wideouts have not been able to catch. And so the fact that they're bringing in a guy that's got good hands, now, can he separate? Can he get open? Can he take the top off the defense? Who knows? We don't know about all that kind of stuff. We don't know if he's going to run a Lewis Murphy route and run into his fellow receiver and fall down. Now, who knows what he's going to do? But we do know one thing. The guy can catch the football, and that's a starting point, sadly, for this team.
It'll be interesting to see what happens at wide receiver. I know Jacoby Ford kills it in Madden, Murph. Kills it in Madden with that speed. That'll be interesting. All right, Murph, let's take a quick commercial break. We'll come back and we'll touch on Shut Your Fat Mouth and our first news story of the night. You're listening to the sports. Wait for it.
Hey, big boy, who do you listen to?
Sports Degos.
With who?
The Murph.
And?
Sonny.
Sonny? Is that your big hairy cousin?
Yeah.
Hey, all you podcasters, put the Cheetos down, get out of your mom's basement, find a job, do something worthwhile. Hey, if that don't work out for you, listen to Sonny and Murph. They got some good stuff, you know what I mean?
All right, welcome back to the Sports Degos, to sportsdegos.com. Murph, real quick, sidetrack, got to give out props on Twitter. I love Twitter. I'm a big Twitter guy. Twitter from the word you said earlier with on the end of it. Off-season _sucks at EdMarshall97 on Twitter. Murph, this is the cool thing about Raider Nation and Twitter and all that kind of stuff. We're here doing a show, talking whatever, about going to the game. He says, hey, you can have my tickets at face value. I can't get down there. Awesome. Love that, man. That's cool. Ed,
wow,
appreciate it. We'll talk to you and see. We're not sure how many guys we're going to have with us. But I just like that. It's just this camaraderie and stuff. By the way, Murph, a season ticket holder who lives in Alaska. That's hardcore, dude.
That is hardcore.
A, you're hardcore if you're a Raider fan. B, you're hardcore if you live in Alaska. To be a season ticket holder living in Alaska, shame on us, Murph. We go to one game a year. I'm going to tuck my tail between my legs and go home. Okay, Murph, every week, without a doubt, every week, somebody is running their fat mouth. Who was it this week, Murph?
Well, if you rewind the clock back a few weeks, we all remember the Masters that happened. And, Tiger Woods was in contention going into the last day, but he had what was reported as an illegal drop. And he was penalized 2 strokes. And this was, I believe, on Saturday before going in on Sunday, which essentially took him out of the running. He still had a long shot at it. You never want to count out Tiger on Sunday wearing red. But, man, that was just made it just a too tough of a hill for him to climb. And so it was unfortunate that Tiger got penalized. Everybody's been kind of rooting for him. We've said it once or a million times before, and we'll continue to say it. We love redemption stories. And Tiger Woods was in the middle of his redemption story. He's on the verge of challenging Jack Nicklaus for the all-time, majors titles. And, no one's more at home in Augusta than Tiger Woods. And so the fact that he had a chance to win it all was pretty darn cool. Well, so we look back at that 2-stroke penalty that was assigned to Mr. Woods. And, Sonny, let me ask you something. Who do you think was responsible for citing Tiger Woods, his illegal drop there in the tournament?
If you had to ask me before I knew the answer, I would have to say another golfer, because you would think in such a competitive sport and a mentally competitive sport, golf is often said is played between the space between your ears, in a 4-inch surface. Murph, yours is about 2.5, 3. You'd think it'd be another golfer who would rat out Woods, especially because, with all the stuff and his history and all that. So, yeah, another golfer.
Well, you're not far off the mark. It was another golfer.
Far off the mark. You're not a far off the mark.
You're not a far off the mark, but it was another golfer, but it was a Champions Tour golfer. It was a Champions Tour golfer, David Eiger, or Egger. I guess it's Eger is how it's spelled. Not involved in the tournament. The other culprit, the other man that was responsible for informing officials that Tiger Woods' drop was illegal, was the announcer, was the commentator.
The what?
Commentator. Our friend, Jim Nantz. So Jim Nantz.
Who says he's our friend?
Well, because that's how he announces every football game. Hello, friends. So Jim Nantz, this week, although it was a few weeks ago, the story just came out. This week, you get shut your fat mouth from the Sports Degos, and here's why. I just introduced you as the commentator, as the announcer, which by definition means you comment on the action on the field. You announce the action on the field to the fan base that's tuning in to watch athletes be athletes. Now, or golfers be golfers, being the skill players that they are. The fact that David Egger and Jim Nantz discovered the fact that Tiger's drop was illegal and then reported it back in to the tournament officials to generate the 2-stroke penalty on Tiger Woods, I think is the most ridiculous border crossing ever when it comes to announcer, commentator, and on-the-field action. How in the crap can we let a guy sitting in the booth describing the action to the rest of the world watching the sport affect the actual outcome of the tournament? It's one thing to have officials affect the outcome of the tournament, or a referee, or an umpire. We highly criticize those guys for in the end of the fourth quarter for throwing a flag for pass interference, or for calling a charge late in the fourth quarter of an NBA game. We criticize those guys. We tell them, keep the whistle in your pocket. Keep the flag in your pocket. Don't get involved. But yet the announcer, Jim Nantz, can radio down and influence the actual outcome of the event, the most high-profile tournament in this, arguably at least, in the sport of golf, and its most high-profile player, I think is absolutely ludicrous. And what difference is it between Jim Nantz radioing the tournament officials versus him buzzing down to Ed Hockley in the middle of a football game? Hey, Ed. Hey, yeah, this is Jim. Me and Phil, we saw holding on that last play. Left tackle, 68 for the Raiders. The guy with the only guy out there with arms bigger than yours, Ed. Yeah, we saw him. He was holding, so we'll need to get a flag thrown on that. Is that what it's come to? Seriously? And then Mr. Muscles come out there and holding 68 on the Raiders. That to me, it crosses. It not even blurs a line. It just flat out crosses a line that should never be crossed. These guys should not have the ability, and I guess shame on the PGA for allowing for allowing him to have that type of influence to call in and to say that this was an infraction, and then award the penalty, take the guy out of the tournament, and ruin his chance at our redemption story.
Murph, I guess my first question is. Does justice depend on who reports it, or does justice need to be served and that's it? Or do we go with the moniker, snitches get stitches?
If it was intentional, then I would have said, again, even though after my big tirade about them crossing the line, I think if it was intentional, it would have been one thing. This was not intentional on Tiger Woods' part by any means. And the fact that golf, where they still got to keep their own freaking scorecards, is the stupidest thing. Live in the now, golf. This is what keeps golf from really driving itself to the forefront of the sports community. I know you're a golfer. I'm not, but I think it's dumb.
No, I'm not a golfer either. I just go up and help trim the grass, essentially.
You kill squirrels and worms?
Yeah. I kill squirrels and worms. Yeah, I think it's pretty, you're an announcer. You're supposed to announce what's going on. And so from Jim Nance's perspective, something illegal occurred and needed to be reported. I know he's getting a ton of flack about it, and I know you hate it. I don't know. Does it cross that line between that's not your job title? I guess it kind of does. I mean, yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting to see him get slammed on the internet. We just posted it up, the article on Deadspin. So yeah, it seems like most guys are going with the moniker of snitch and get stitches. But justice is justice. However you lie, Jim Nance, shut your face.
Is this on? Hey! Is this on? Hey, shut your fat mouth. I'm talking here.
Murph, we're in the midst of NBA playoffs. We're post-draft, and so guys, teams are signing undrafted free agents. Baseball is freshly underway and stuff. We had an amazing 19-inning game the other day with the Oakland A's.
Oh, that was
lost the
incredible.
Yankees today. A lot of sports stuff going on. Golf is, no pun intended, getting into full swing.
Hey-o!
There's a ton of stuff going on. I'm sure the WNBA is playing somewhere.
Speaking of horse racing. I'm sorry, did I say that out loud? I meant to think that.
All right. There's another
Kentucky
sport.
Derby. Kentucky Derby was today, wasn't it?
There's another sport, Murph, that is potentially in what some call the greatest time of that sport. And I'm talking about hockey, Murph. The hockey playoffs, I think, are happening right now. Stanley Cup playoffs. Get the Rangers and Maple Leafs and Bruins and Capitals and Ducks and Red Wings and Blues and Kings and all that kind of stuff, right? I guess my question is do we care? And maybe, me and you, do we care? And then do you care? Listen to the show, like hockey. Like, are we just a football, basketball, baseball society, or how many of us actually care about hockey? It's always an interesting question, but I find myself when I check ESPN and check all my articles in the morning and stuff. You have a little routine you do. Hockey never even makes a blurb on the radar. The only time I read about it is if it's front page ESPN on the little link there, or the links on the right, or the big thing on the left. So I don't know. Do you care? Do we care about hockey?
Yeah, I do. Not as feverishly as I have in the past or at different times of my life. Growing up in the here's a couple of different things. To answer your question is that you and I have a tainted perspective in the fact that where we grew up, we did not grow up with hockey. We grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. We grew up with basketball, football, and baseball. Those were the three major sports, and that's what we played as kids growing up. That's what we were involved with. That's what our parents and our uncles and our cousins and everybody rooted for, and those were the things that were at the forefront of our lives growing up. So those are the three sports that we can immediately identify with. Now, there is a lot of our Great White North brothers and a lot of our, Northeast, listeners, a lot of folks that is their part of their growing up. That, you grow up in Pittsburgh or you grow up in Philly or you grow up in any of the original six cities of especially, in hockey. When you grow up in those places, hockey is a part of their day to day. And like I said, especially Canada. So they identify with it from an early age. Now, that said, when I was a late teenager, I think I was 19, when the Sharks came to San Jose. And I lived at the time about 10 minutes from the arena. And so, obviously being a sports fan, and now there's a new professional sports franchise, and it was literally the first hometown sport that I had. Yeah, we were big Raider fans and big Ace fans and big Warriors fans, but Oakland is 45 minutes away. This place was 10 minutes down the road from the house or one of the homes that I grew up in and the place that I was living at the time. I could walk to the Shark Tank. I could take the bus to the Shark Tank. So I really quickly gravitated towards hockey. Now, I didn't really know a lot about it, but over time, over a few years, I really became a fan of the sport. And the Sharks at that time, and early on in their history, they won two huge playoff series against the Detroit Red Wings. I can't remember if they were back to back, if they were 3 years apart, or whatever it was, but it was very much an underdog story, and it was a huge deal for the Sharks to pull off those playoff series wins. So it really endeared me to the sport. And, and I've lived in other places around the country since then. And whatever city that I happen to have been in, I've always kind of followed that hockey team. Most recently, the Nashville Predators. I love the Predators. I go to, between 5 and 10 games a year. Again, I'm still not as well versed on the rules and, and all the intricacies of the sport as I am like when it comes to football. But it's really, it's a fun sport to watch, and it's a fun sport to be involved with. So, now all that said, there's a couple things about hockey. One is that in person, it's way better than it is on television, is that it doesn't translate on TV, much like baseball. It doesn't translate unless you're there. In the speed of the game, the violence of the game, the collisions that happen, all of that stuff, when you get a chance to sit down on the ice and watch a live hockey game, there is nothing like it. It is absolutely incredible. It's intense. It's fast. These guys are so amazingly athletic that I would put them up there with football players as far as just pure athleticism goes, as far as twitch skills and things like that. It's just absolutely incredible. Now, all that said, say that about the sport, the NHL is what's generated the lack of interest. The NHL has gone through lockouts, it's gone through strikes, it's gone through multiple contract issues with the players, and it's consistently driven the sport down. This year, they had another work stoppage. They had a shortened season. It didn't have the excitement, didn't have the buildup that it normally would throughout the regular season. And much like basketball, they play 82 games. It's a long regular season. Then you get into the postseason, and that's where the magic starts to happen. And the deeper you get into the playoffs, the more physical the game gets, the more speed is involved, the less fighting is, and the more technical the game becomes. And it's really a fun thing to watch. But when you don't have interest on the front end because the owners are in a pissing match with the players and none of them are playing, well, then we as the fans tune out. And unless you're just an absolute diehard Islanders fan that lives on Long Island or something, you're not going to be in tune. So the peripheral fan, guys like me, no, I'm not watching it. A guy like you who's not ever been a hockey fan, of course you're not going to watch it. So I think the NHL needs to get its crap together and to make sure that going forward from this point out, they don't have any more work stoppages. They allow the fan bases to grow with the teams, to establish, favorite players, favorite whatever, all that stuff, and not have. Are you playing my music? Am I talking too long?
Oh, you're talking too long, but keep going.
Okay, so that's it. The NHL needs to help themselves. This isn't an inherent problem with hockey. It's a problem with the league. And once the league gets that figured out, the fan bases will come back, and guys like us will pay a lot more attention to it. Because, hey, as of right now, the San Jose Sharks are a 6 seed going up against the Vancouver Canucks, who are a 3 seed, and the Sharks have a 2-0 series lead. That's something we should be talking about on our show. But it's hard to get excited about it when the NHL continues to, piss on the momentum. Okay, now I'm done.
What you want? Just give me some. Okay, fine. Take my last one here. Jesus fucking Christ.
Oh, hey.
Hey,
There it is, Mikey. Check it out. His head's bleeding. Mikey, check it out. His legs, Little Wayne's legs.
My favorite movie.
Bitch, what are you doing? You little fucking bitch. Where the fuck are you?
That's the best hockey part of any movie ever. Check it out, Mike. His head's bleeding. His little legs are shaking.
That's my all-time favorite movie ever. Swingers.
Yeah, it's great.
Classic.
It's a great movie.
Classic.
You said you were living there in San Jose when the Sharks came to town, and I was long gone from the Bay Area by that point. I liked hockey growing up. I liked playing the games on Nintendo. I love Blades of Steel, so I love the concept of it. It's a lot like soccer, just on ice. Some of the same rules, stuff like that. Or similar rules. I won't say same. But I just never got into it. I recently been playing street hockey. To be honest with you, though, Murph, and that's a lot of fun playing street hockey. Not with the rollerblades or anything like that, but just running around your feet. That's a whole lot of fun. But yeah, I mean the Sharks are 2-0. I would love to talk about it, but I'm not a big hockey guy. I don't want to come out here like a poser, like, hey, we're all about the Sharks, Let alone I don't know anything about them and stuff, So yeah, I think for me it's always been. I would like to care about hockey, but there's just no draw to it. And that could be because, up here in the Northwest, you got the Winterhawks, but they're not NHL. They're a step down. So, it is what it is. But hockey. I posted up there on Twitter real quick. Let's see what the tweetlings say, Murph. Is that what we call tweetlings or people on Twitter?
Yeah, the Twitterverse, I think, is probably a little
Twitterverse.
More. Yeah.
Twitterverse. I put up there, retweet if you're watching, favorite if you care less. Right now, 3-1, guys walking. I care, just don't watch any of the games. Couldn't care less. Hey, now I love hockey. Go Sharks. So,
There you go. I'm telling you, the interest is out there, and especially people that are, that at this point now, like a team like the Sharks, as I mentioned, they came into town when I was a late teenager, but, so how many people grew up and were born with the San Jose Sharks in the backyard? It's much like that now in Nashville, that my kids are growing up Predators fans, so that's going to be ingrained into them at a much, much younger age than it was to me and certainly you. So, so I think that hockey will continue to catch as long as, like I said, the league has got to keep themselves on the forefront of this thing. No more work stoppages because you're going to goober it up.
Well, Murph, I grew up a Predators fan. It was just, Arnold Schwarzenegger version.
Get to the chopper! Blah, blah.
Here's another hockey moment from the great television.
Jerry and Kramer are going to be here any second. What the?
So what do you think?
What is that?
I painted my face.
You painted your face?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, support the team.
Well, you can't walk around like that.
Why not?
Because it's insane.
Oh, hey, you gotta let them know you're out there. This is the playoffs.
Anyway, that scene's from Seinfeld, where David Puddy paints his face and stuff. Going to the Devils game up there in New Jersey. New Jersey Devils, right?
Yeah, the New Jersey Devils.
Yeah. See, I know hockey.
New York Islanders. There's the New York Rangers. There's a lot of hockey going up there in the Northeast. Absolutely. Yeah, and Anna Sandoval, who is at Banana Babe 44, just tweeted out a clip from Slapshot, a classic hockey movie. And I got to say, I watched Miracle for the first time the other night, which was about the 1980 Lake Placid USA hockey team. Kurt Russell playing Herb Brooks. Fantastic movie. Very, very good movie. Not a top 10 as far as sports movies go, but as far as a fun little entertaining watch, and of course very patriotic. Very good movie. Miracle.
Murph, time to pay homage to the motherland.
I gotta get prepared. You tell me this was coming.
Every week, Murph, we take a few minutes. You know, we're Italian. Ancestors came over, some of them from Sicily. My father's side from Sicily, mother's side from northern Italy. My parents grew up in the Bay Area in primarily Italian neighborhoods. I wasn't so lucky, Murph. Pretty much the only thing Italian about me is my back hair and the loudness of my voice. So, Murph, every week we try to get in touch with our Italian roots. And we give a whopping historical a fact. Sometimes it's fact of the day. Sometimes it's the fact of the week. And Murph, you do great research. You do tremendous research. Sometimes you throw out a topic and I'm like, how the heck are you going to tie this in? But you always do. So without any further ado, while I eat my fondue, go ahead, Murph.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the compliment. And as I mentioned before, it's my favorite segment of the week. The whopping historical fact gives us a chance to dive into the Italian/Sicilian heritage and talk about what happened on this day, what impactful moment happened in Italian and Sicilian history. And so, today is May 4th. As we mentioned, May the 4th be with you. It's now known as Star Wars Day. But on this day in history, something pretty significant happened. Speaking of the Giants, we talked a little bit about them earlier. And, of course, speaking about Bay Area sports, as we always do, Willie Howard Mays, born May 6, 1931 in Westfield, Alabama. On this day, May the 4th, 1965, Willie Mays broke the National League home run record. That's right. He broke Mel Ott's record. And, you know, of course, he went on to hit 660 home runs in his career. But on this day, he hit his 512th career home run, breaking the National League record. And that was 45 years ago this week. And so we pay homage to Mr. Mays. Speaking of legends, an absolute legendary baseball player, probably one of, if not the most famous and greatest baseball players of all time. But Willie Mays, not Italian. So how does this tie in? Well, you know, for a long time, the announcer for the San Francisco Giants was Lon Simmons. Lon Simmons, born July 19th, 1923 in Vancouver, Washington, is an American baseball and football broadcaster, currently broadcasting part-time only for the San Francisco Giants. Although he was a star pitcher at Burbank, California High School and Glendale College, eventually he enlisted into the Coast Guard, and after World War II, he signed with the Phillies, pitched briefly, but really found his calling in calling baseball games. And so, you know, he's been long time affiliated with the San Francisco 49ers and with the San Francisco Giants growing up as a kid around the Bay Area. I remember listening to Lon Simmons call those Giants games. You know, Bill King was the guy that always did the A's and the Raiders and the Warriors. But Lon Simmons was the guy that did the Giants games. Well, Lon Simmons, not in Italian. So how does that fit into our whopping historical fact of the week? Well,
can I go make a sandwich?
No. Lon Simmons, you'll like this. This will be fun for you. For our video game football brethren that are listening to the show, Lon Simmons provided, this is pre-Madden, Lon Simmons provided voice samples for Sega's Sports Talk video games, including Sports Talk Baseball, Joe Montana Sports Talk Football, Sports Talk Football 93, NFL 94 starring Joe Montana. Joe Montana 2 Sports Talk Football was the first ever video game to feature full play-by-play running commentary. That was Lon Simmons, San Francisco 49ers, San Francisco Giants announcer, the same man that called the game the day that Willie Mays hit that 512th home run, breaking the National League home run record. That Lon Simmons was the original guy to make play-by-play video games, most famously Joe Montana Sports Talk Football. And Joe Montana, Italian-American.
Oh, my gosh. Are you kidding me? He's a freaking Niner. You can't have a...
Hey, man, after Mussolini last week, I was a little depressed.
You can't...
Don't judge me.
The crowd's going crazy in the studio.
All right, well, how about this?
The crowd's going crazy. I can't control them.
Let me make it better then. Joe Montana and Dan Marino were both featured in the same gloves commercial. What was the gloves called? The Isotoner. They were both featured in the same Isotoner gloves commercial. Dan Marino, Italian American.
That's a little better. That's a little better. We can give you props for that.
Sorry, I should have went another half step.
Do you know what famous call Lon Simmons was in on?
Well, I do after doing the research on him. Yes, 1964, I want to say was, and Jim Marshall's picked up the ball, who's running the wrong way.
Yeah, love it. Here's the call. Straight back to pass, looking, now stops, throws, completed to Billy Kilmer up to 30-yard line. Kilmer driving for the first down, loses the football. It is picked up by Jim Marshall, who was running the wrong way. Marshall is running the wrong way, and he's running into the end zone the wrong way. Thinks he scored a touchdown, he scored a safety. His teammates were running along the far side of the field. Russ, trying to tell him to go back. That's why I would never make it as an announcer. But Lon Simmons, good job. Good job, buddy. All right, Murph, powering through the second half of our show. Second topic of discussion here. Looking at those Bulls, Murph. They won their playoff series.
Oh, what a transition. What a heck of a transition.
They won their playoff series, didn't they? Did they not?
Yes, they certainly did. They won it tonight. Game
Why don't you focus on the news stories rather than our transitions? Huh?
Well, I'm just saying. Way to go, Captain Smooth.
Don't sweat the small stuff. pet the sweaty stuff, whatever it says. Derrick Rose still not playing. Earlier this week, there was a fun a hashtag going on. What was it? Things that will happen before Derrick Rose plays or something like that? I forget.
Yeah, things that will happen before Derrick Rose comes back. We had some fun with that. You know, Jamarcus will put down the gravy before Derrick Rose comes back. What were some other ones? There was we had a lot of fun ones. I don't remember them off the top of my head, but there were some good ones out there.
He's still not playing, and we'll post an article on Deadspin here about it and stuff. Is he getting a bad rap? Is Rose is he losing a lot of his credibility? Is he losing a lot of the fanfare that was around him because he was one of the up and comers? He was one of the new leaders in the NBA and stuff, and he was an all-star. I mean, he was a stud. Is he going to lose a lot of credibility from this? And is it rightly applied? Or is there other things that fans aren't seeing? Much like we talked about with a good friend of the show, Peter Vesey. As fans, we sometimes don't think these people are human. But they're all human beings. They all experience the same emotions we do. But is his legacy tarnished, I guess, is a question? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, your first question was, does he lose credibility? And I think the answer to that question is yes, he's already lost credibility. Does he continue to lose credibility? And the answer to that question is yes as well. Boy, this is a tough one. You can't climb into someone's brain. They can only climb into his body. And the doctors have said that he's been cleared to play. That there is nothing physically that should keep him from coming back full time. Now, as the article mentions, everybody's different. Everybody's knees are different. Mine's different than yours. Yours is different from Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose is different from Adrian Peterson. So we can't base somebody coming back, a miraculous comeback like an Adrian Peterson. We can't look at that the same way as we look at Derrick Rose. Now, all that said, something that you and I have had a little bit of a discussion about the past couple of weeks and kind of a theme of a lot of our news topics has been the mental toughness of professional athletes and about how that's a lot of times the things that differentiate them between the guy that didn't make it. That there are a lot of big, fast, strong guys in reference to the NBA. There's a lot of guys that can shoot. There's a lot of guys that can jump. There's a lot of guys that can, transition. There's a lot of guys that have those skill sets, but they don't have the mental toughness. And whether the mental toughness is defined by, workout regimen or study of an offense or, whatever it may be, one of those things can be the ability to come back from injury. And while he says the game is different, the actual end game is different from pregame or from practice, because as we know, he's practicing quite a bit. So he says that those things are different, and that's different from game time. So is that true? I mean, how true is that? We don't know because we're not there, but all we can do is trust the doctors, and the doctors say that he's okay. So to me, this ultimately comes down to this is a mental block with Derrick Rose. If my team is playing in Game 7 and I have an injury, I'm going to try to come back. We saw David Lee, and now granted, this wasn't nearly as severe of an injury, but we saw David Lee come back in that closeout game that was necessary for the Warriors. We saw him come back and play for 1 minute. It was just 1 minute, and it fired up the crowd, and it fired up that team. Why can't Derrick Rose suit up and come in for 5 minutes? Why can't he come in and play a quarter? No one's asking Derrick Rose to put his future, his career at risk. I don't think, obviously they're not asking him to because he hasn't done it. But the fact that he doesn't even have the willingness to suit up and to try to check in at least once, that tells me that there's a major mental block with this guy. And at this point going forward, I got to question his mental toughness. If this was, and I'm not comparing him to Michael Jordan, but I'm just saying this, and this is probably a question we should ask Pete Vesey when we had him. You think for any second that if this was Michael Jordan, he'd be sitting on the bench right now as your team is going through the playoffs? The answer to that question is heck no. At least from West I can tell. There is no way, unless you drug him off the court, that you could keep Michael Jordan from being out there with his team, giving them the best chance to win a basketball game.
Is there a standard? I guess is the first question that comes to mind. Is there a objective cutoff point, a measurable and obtainable goal to achieve before you come back on the floor? And I think medically you could potentially make the argument, which is what the doctors do. They're going to look at it from an objective point. Now, in this article, it says, for whatever reason, Derrick Rose's brain is not sold. Is there a objective, definitive, obtainable, measurable goal to where it says this guy's brain's broken or this guy's smart and not want to jeopardize his future for the long term? All you have to do is rewind the clock 4 or 5 months and look at Robert Griffin III. There's no way he should have been playing. I don't care who you are. He was obviously limping. That field is horrible, and he busted his I think it was his knee. Yeah, it was his knee. Yeah. He busted up. For what? I guess is my question. For what? He was obviously hurt. He was obviously severely injured. If they were to win, does he play the next week? Or is it just one more playoff win? And if you're not going to win the championship, what does one more playoff win do for you other than appease your fans? Does it do much for your career? Does it do much for Robert Griffin? What benefit for Robert Griffin does he have staying in that game and getting injured? And so I guess that's the viewpoint I look at with Derrick Rose. If in his mind he's saying we don't have a chance to win the championship, it's the end of the season. If I come back, get hurt again, what's the benefit of that? I'm going to take the rest of the year off, come back 100%, not have to have any doubt in my mind, and have several more years of a positive career.
Then
that wrong?
Then that's what he should say. And that's ultimately how this should be put out there. Because when you put out, yeah, he can come back, and then he says, yeah, but I'm not gonna, and yeah, but I'm practicing every week, and yeah, but I'm doing all this stuff, but I'm not going to play in a game, what kind of message does that send? And the answer to your question is that what benefit does that bring to Robert Griffin III? Well, it didn't bring a benefit to Robert Griffin III. It brought a benefit to the Washington Redskins. It brought a benefit to the Minnesota Vikings for Adrian Peterson to come back. What Derrick Rose is not doing is bringing a benefit to him and not the Chicago Bulls. That, to me, is a me-first move, very similar to stay in the football world of Jay Cutler not getting back into the game. Highly criticized. Everybody annihilated Jay Cutler for not getting back into that playoff game. Why? Because he was doing what was best for Jay Cutler, not what was best for the Chicago Bears. And I don't care if you're a professional athlete or you're an amateur athlete or you're a junior athlete or whatever it is, when you're worried about the name on the back and not the name on the front, you're doing yourself and your team a disservice. And the fact
let me no.
So go ahead.
So this guy is supposed to jeopardize the rest of his life, potentially, so his team, who really only cares about him. No, let's go back to Griffin. This guy is supposed to jeopardize his life and his future, his ability to play football with his kids in the backyard, all for the sake of his team, so they can win one more game. I don't buy that.
I think that we're drawing an extreme with that type of a statement, and I think that we're way, way over dramatizing it. That we're not talking about. You honestly think that a guy like James Andrews would give the green light to RG3 if that was going to be a career-ending or a life-threatening injury, as you say, that's going to hobble him for life?
But potentially.
Well, but that's what you're saying, is that you're talking about hobbling a man for life and not giving them the ability to play with his kids. I don't think that's what we're talking about. Now, granted, the NFL is a lot more physical sport than what basketball is. And, these basketball guys are inherently larger athletes, and so they have more knee and foot problems. And, just go see Shaq for that. So, we're talking about different types of injuries. But at the end of the day, though, man, this is not a guy that's putting his life, his leg, his knee, or anything on the line. This is his brain keeping him from playing football. And I think that's if anything, I would rather see somebody like you brought up RG3. I'd rather see if a doctor stepped out and said, you know what, he wants to go, we're not going to let him. I don't think anybody would begrudge anybody for that. But when you got a full team of doctors saying, yeah, man, there's nothing wrong with him, and it's been going on for months now, they're not talking about this has been a couple of weeks or, we might get him back in time for the playoffs. This guy's been cleared forever, and he's still not making any kind of an attempt to get on the court. Just get out there. Get out there for a handful of minutes is all I'm saying. That's all you got to do. Give the team a show of good faith. You want to talk about being a chance to be an inspiration? That's what you have a chance to do. You have a chance to demonstrate yourself as a leader. Get out there. I don't think the mental toughness is there. I think this is strictly a brain thing when it comes to Derrick Rose. And can I begrudge him? I don't know. I've never been in that position at the professional level, but at the amateur level, I've been in that position plenty of times, and I'm getting out there, man. I'm getting out there. You got to drag me off the field. I'm sorry. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, and I get it, but I think it comes back to maybe a misplaced importance on sports, because we're all people. We all got families, and we all got lives to live and stuff. And if you look at the NFL. If you truly look at it, do those teams care about these guys really? I mean, look at the running back position. Guys used to get bank being a solid running back. Unless your name is Adrian Peterson or a couple select other few, you're just a guy who can run the football and that's it. You got about a 3 or 4 year career and you're done. So for guys to leave it all on the field, for Ronnie Lott, wasn't he the one who cut his pinky or something like that for a game?
Yeah.
That's legendary. But really, when you think about it, is it borderline stupidity? I mean, no way am I calling Ryan Lott stupid, but is that mindset to where you're going to mutilate your body for a sport that really chews you up and spits you out for the big machine, for the big money of it all. Is it really worth it?
Do you want to be great? I mean, do you know, when we talk about a guy like Ronnie Lott, you're talking about one of the all-time greatest safeties ever to have put on a uniform and played in the NFL. And would he have been that way? Would he have been that way if he wasn't willing to cut off his freaking pinky to get on the field? I mean, what are we talking about here? What do you want? What do you want out of your career? Do you want to be known as a Hall of Famer, or do you want to be a champion? And it's the ultimate catch-22 question. And Sonny, and this is what makes sports talk radio so fun. I don't think there's a good answer for it. I don't think there's a right answer. I don't think there's an established way to go down. But all I could say is this: is that Derrick Rose? You have a chance to be he's not going to be the next Michael Jordan, but he could be the next great Chicago Bull. This is not the way he's going to get it done. So what do you want? What do you want to do? Do you want to go down? Do you want to be a legend? We've used that term a lot tonight. Do you want to be one of the all-time greats? He has the physical ability to be one of the all-time greatest players in the history of the NBA. How important is that to you? Do you want to be that guy? As of right now, the answer to that question is no. Because all of the greats, Magic, Bird, Jordan, Oscar Robertson, Pistol Pete, you name it, you go down the list, Bill Russell, none of them would have let this keep them off the court. All those guys would be on the court doing the best they can for their team, ultimately making them the greatest. Derrick Rose is not doing himself any favors.
You're listening to the Sports Degos, sportsdegos.com. Welcome back to the Sports Degos with Sonny and the Murph.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Sad sack.
It's really unfair. It's my team. It's my quarterback.
Sad sack.
I'll be lying if I said that it didn't bother me.
Sad sack.
Sometimes emotions is what makes a person.
Sad sack.
Promised Mess I wouldn't do this. But, as I said, there comes a time when
Sad sack.
Oh, I just changed my shirt. My chicken!
Sad sack.
I'm not a sad sack, am I?
You complete me.
Sad sack.
The Los Angeles Lakers. So many sad sack potential recipients, but only one really, truly stood out. The history of the LA Laker organization, there's been a lot of whining. I'm not going to lie to you. There's been a lot of greatness, but there's been a lot of whining on and off the court. But this past week, as the Los Angeles Lakers were swept out of the playoffs by the Spurs, after making that climb back to get themselves to the playoffs, unfortunately, Kobe got hurt. And once soon as Kobe got hurt, we know that it was going to be going downhill. But there was a chance, right? There was a chance for this team. And that chance wore number 12. That chance was Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard had been great in Orlando. He'd been great at times. And when he came to the Los Angeles Lakers, they looked at him as not going to call him a savior for the organization, because we all know that that's Kobe Bryant. But the dream team of Howard and Gasol and Nash and Bryant, we thought it was going to be amazing. They graced the cover of Sports Illustrated and said, "Isn't this going to be fun?" Well, for Mr. Sad Sack, it wasn't very fun. For number 12, it wasn't fun, as he got himself ejected from the last game, from their elimination game. And Dwight Howard was quoted as saying, "It's like a nightmare, man. It's like a bad dream. We couldn't wake up out of it. Just frustration. There's nothing we can do about it," he said. "But it's over with now. I got to do a better job of keeping my cool. It's very tough when you're out there playing. It's an emotional game. You just don't want to lose." Dwight Howard, you had a rocky year. A lot of things happened that were out of your control, as you are quoted as saying. But Dwight Howard, you are a sad sack. You're playing again this game 4, which your team was getting swept against the Spurs. Your team was looking for an emotional boost. They needed someone. Although you were probably going down, your team, your fans at home in LA needed something to elevate them. Much like we talked about Derrick Rose needing the fan base and the team needing someone to elevate them, needing to elevate those Chicago Bulls. The Los Angeles Lakers were looking for you to motivate them and to bring them up, to rise them up. But no, instead, you decided to argue and to bitch and to whine to the officials, and you got yourself thrown out with less than a minute remaining in the first quarter of Game 4 of your team getting eliminated in the first round. You sad sack. Grow a set. Nut up, as my co-host likes to say. You better come back stronger next year if this team finally decide to sign you to a max contract. At this point, who knows? But man, what an unceremonious, whining exit by who should be one of the premier players in the National Basketball Association.
Hey, sad sack. Seriously? You are the sad sack of the week with Murph and Sonny.
You know, Murph, there's a lot of things in psychology and stuff that you have to study in school. A lot of it makes absolutely no sense. A lot of it makes a lot of sense. A couple things that I notice about Dwight Howard, and a couple things, you know, and like I say, it's all just opinions, right? I never met the guy. You just see the reactions. I posted a link on Twitter to lipstickalley.com. I apologize for any of the content there. I have no idea what kind of website it is. But it shows a GIF of Dwight Howard, you know, mouthing off, and there's Duncan in the background just kind of smiling. But then it has a still picture right below that of Duncan and Howard's kind of blurry a little bit, walking off the court. And there's Duncan sitting on the table, getting ready to check in, it looks like. And he has this smirk on his face. And never have I seen a picture that just epitomizes, right? Emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence. In our world, in our country, we always promote, you know, mathematical intelligence and scientific intelligence. You know, if you're good at finances and numbers, you're going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars on Wall Street. But if you're good with your emotions, if you know how to control your emotions and not let your emotions control you, then you have so many more opportunities, you know. Don't let your emotions of today shut the doors of tomorrow, you know. And you look at this picture, and you think about Tim Duncan's career, right? He's a freaking robot. He shows no emotion. He is all business. And yet here, he's smiling. I think this is the first picture I've ever seen of Duncan smiling. And you see a frustrated Howard walking off the court. The sad thing, Murph, at the top where the GIF is it shows the stats that Dwight Howard had. He had 19 points. He was 7 for 13 in the field goals. 8 rebounds already. The guy was having a monster night. Say he does the same thing in the second half. He ends with 38 points and 16 rebounds. In a game the Lakers had to have. Right? Kobe's gone. Nothing. And yet this guy's emotions get the better of him and cost him the opportunity to do something great. I mean, there are so many teaching points from this. It's ridiculous. But the picture of Duncan on the scoring table just smirking at Howard as he walks away, and that's mental defeat right there, you know? It's one thing to have all the talent in the world, but if you can't put it together, if you can't stay on the court long enough to show that talent, then what good is that talent, right? I'd rather take a mediocre guy who can control his emotions than a hothead who loses it and costs his team any chance of winning. Anyway.
Absolutely. I mean, you nailed that one big time. And, man, that picture is hilarious. I hadn't seen the GIF or the picture to this point, and that is just absolutely tells the story. And, you know, it seems to be a theme with our show here the past few weeks, mental toughness, and you illustrated it perfectly this picture illustrates it perfectly. There is a KG veteran, a longtime guy with a long-time success in this league, has multiple championship rings, and a guy that doesn't. And nothing clearly defines the success of one and the inability to succeed with the other than that picture right there.
No, it's the epitome of it, right? It's like, see ya. I've defeated you.
He's got him at that point. Yes.
Oh,
he knows he's won the series at that. I think this was game 2 or something.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's known, or 3 maybe, that he knows that they've won at that point. Yeah.
It's done. It's done. Murph, real quick. LeBron, he's getting to be like, freaking Pryor comes in your mouth too much. LeBron, 4th MVP.
You may want that back.
Yeah, probably.
Jeez.
We'll edit that part out. You say his name too much. I hate saying his name and stuff, I hate saying his name so many times. Speaking of psychology, the Freudian slip here.
Oh, my gosh. All right, here we go. All right, back on track.
So, LeBron James, 4th MVP. Is it? Do we start saying he's the greatest now? Do we start saying he's in that rare area and stuff? It's the reports are out that he's gonna get it. I don't know if he got it or not. But only guys who've had it is I think Jordan and Russell and Kareem and Wilt have won 4. And of them, only Russell won it in 5 seasons. So, do you gotta, regardless of his championships, regardless how much you hate him, you almost have to put him in the ring now, right? As one of the greatest ever. Or do you?
Well, I think that if he gets it done this year, you absolutely have to. If he puts up another MVP, he's already put up an MVP type season, but if he locks down the MVP award and the Heat go on to win the championship, as I think everybody kind of expects them to do at this point. Yeah, when you've done something, we're not talking about, a seasonal thing or a game thing, but when you've done something career-wise, like win back-to-back MVPs with back-to-back championships, and the only other predecessors that there are is Michael Jordan and Bill Russell, absolutely, I think that you got to count the guy up there as one of the greatest of all time. And I think that he's slowly making his way towards that. Well, maybe not so slowly nowadays, but he's been building towards that I think that early on, when it was all that witness and King James stuff and all that, and when he was in Cleveland, and I think everybody wanted him to be that, and I think that they recognized that he had the athletic ability to be that, but we didn't know what he was going to be. And then he did himself a disservice when there was the decision. And I don't think that, I didn't have any issue with LeBron James, and I don't think a lot of casual non-Cleveland Cavalier fans, nobody had any issue with LeBron James. But when he put himself on display and he punked the entire city of Cleveland on national television with the decision and kind of made not only a mockery of them, but he just really made himself look like just kind of pompous and very arrogant with the way that was handled. He really knocked himself down some notches, and a lot of people were rooting against him, and I'm one included. And a lot of NBA fans were rooting against the Heat. I think he's finally starting to climb out of that, and he really has been, he's been a good guy since that. And really, when you look at the history of his career, that's really the only blemish, and it was a pretty big blemish. But I think at this point, he's finally started to climb out of that. His play is amazing. I mean, he's not the next Michael Jordan because his game is not like Michael Jordan. His game is more like Magic, if anybody. But he's really establishing himself. That team is establishing themselves. And everybody said, well, could he get one? And, he did the whole thing where, he counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and all that kind of stuff. But I think now it's really coming to fruition. I mean, I think that, the Miami Heat have a chance to win another championship this year. And who knows how long for the foreseeable future. We'll see what kind of a contract he decides to sign. But, yeah, I think that, as much as I didn't like the way his transition from Cleveland to Miami was handled, I think that at this point he's proven himself. He's been a good guy since then. And, yeah, he's got to be up there in the conversation if they get it done this year. If they get it done this year and he wins the MVP, I think you definitely have to include him in the conversation. And kudos to him, man. I think he deserves it. I hate to say that, but he really does.
So if he doesn't win it, he's not in the conversation.
No, I think he goes.
Say he wins the MVP, doesn't win the championship.
I think he goes the way of Peyton Manning at that point.
Interesting.
I think he goes the way of Peyton Manning. I think he becomes the greatest regular season basketball player. Well, not the greatest regular, but in the conversation, excuse me, as the greatest regular season basketball player. But until he starts racking up some championships, because here's the thing about Jordan, and he's the one we always compare him to. Again, you can't compare his game to Jordan, but when you compare the performance or the career stats, things like that, when you look at Jordan was amazing in the regular season. He has the 6 championships, and his performance in championship games was amazing. And that was the thing that got LeBron, was that with the Cavaliers, he really didn't show up. Well, I'm not going to say he didn't show up, but he didn't have near the dominant stats that Jordan did in every finals that he ever played in. And that was the thing that was holding LeBron back. Well, LeBron got that last year. He had an amazing performance in the finals last year. Well, in my eyes, he's got 5 more to go. So if he gets 2, this will be his second one. That gets him at least into the conversation. If he gets 3, 4, then he really gets himself into the conversation. But I think that's ultimately what it needs to be, is that if he gets the MVP and doesn't win the championship, then he definitely goes the route of Peyton Manning and his great regular season, maybe not so much in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think it's too early still, even if he gets his 4th. Too early. And I guess it's just what you measure it on. Do you measure MVP? Do you measure championships? MVP, great personal player. Championships, great team player. What do you do? All right, Murph. We're way over time here. We're close to 131 minutes, so over.
Did we set a record for the Sports Degos tonight?
Potentially. I think it's probably because I didn't have any beer, and I was a little more smarter. Yeah, that's not even a word. A little more smarter.
It was a graduate.
Yeah, a little more smarter. Here we go. All right, Murph. Big show. Peter Vesey.
Peter Vesey. That was huge.
Dude, we interviewed a guy who interviewed the guys.
we got like 2 degrees of Michael Jordan right now.
We're like basically on Jordan's Twitter handle. Right?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, we're 2 degrees from Michael Jordan, man. That's pretty cool, man. That's pretty huge. We're 2 degrees from Bob Costas.
Our good buddy Ed Marshall 97 on Twitter. Bill Lambier, best of all time. Case closed.
Awesome.
I used to love that guy. He was the ultimate flopper. He was the
best
original
face
flopper.
mask of all time right there.
Yeah. Best face mask of all time. Better than Richard Hamilton's for sure. All right, yeah. So Peter Vesey interview at the top of the show. We'll split that off. I guess we don't really need to, because it's at the beginning of the show. We don't really need to. So Peter Vesey interview at Peter Vesey 1 on Twitter. Check him out. Great interview, just about basketball and interviewing and stuff like that. Like, gosh. And I think Murph, he even said he'd be willing to come back.
Sounded like it. Right. Oh, man, how cool would that be? We got to get him back for the finals. We'll see what happens in the finals. We'll reach out. We'll reach back out to our friend of the show, Peter Vesey, and see if
friend of the show, Peter Vesey. Yeah, good friend. Good chums. All right, Murph. Appreciate it. Appreciate your work. Appreciate your due diligence. Due diligence. Is that what I said? Diligence. And that's without beer. Been a long day.
You seem to do better with it.
Due diligence. Appreciate your due diligence and all that you do. Yeah. Anyway, anything else to say before we go?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate everything you do for the Sports Degos. It's been a long week for the both of us, but especially for you, sir. You've had a lot going on, and congratulations on your second graduation, and good luck on the next one. And so I appreciate you making time for the radio show at the Sports Degos on Twitter, Facebook.com/thesportsdegos. Most importantly, www.thesportsdegos.com. You can catch everything there. Archives, iTunes, Stitcher. We're all over the place, man. We're going worldwide, baby.
Also, Murph, we appreciate the interaction during the show. I like when we tweet things out, people respond. It makes it seem like, everybody or more people are listening than the fish in my my office here and stuff. So that's pretty cool. Also, Murph, we'll be getting this a little later. We'll post it up on Twitter and stuff and the website. If you want to be, if you would like a place, is a better way to preface this. If you would like a place to showcase your opinions or your writing skills, or if you ever wanted to write an article or something in regards to sports, or it could be life in general, whatever, let us know. thesportsdegos.com. It's just a website through WordPress. We would love to get more articles on there, more opinions, and just share, with other guys and stuff. What are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on that? A lot of guys share on Twitter, but sometimes 140 characters just isn't enough. So, if you ever feel like writing something about sports and need a place to host it, contact us at the Sports Degos on Twitter, and we'd love to make that happen for you. All right, until next week, new show time, 9 o'clock Pacific time, 12 o'clock Eastern time, every Saturday night. Thank you to Murph. Thank you to Peter Vesey calling in and all the interaction on Twitter. Show notes will be at the Sports Degos or on the sportsdegos.com website very, very shortly. And until then, Murph, as always, like Pinky in the Brain, take over.
We're taking over the world.